And the recording is starting. So, well, thank you all for coming to this event. It looks pretty good. I'm safe to say I'm happy. This is a good turnout. So nice to see you all. Um, you're coming to the event on graduate schools, and we have two lovely presenters today. We have Emily Gordon, and we also have Justin Nelson, both recent-ish graduates from the University of Wisconsin-Stout, and they are both in graduate schools, one being UC Davis in California, and the other the Glasgow School of Art in Scotland, UK. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see the differences, the experiences that they've had. I would also like to probably foreground the fact that we know we're living through a pandemic, and part of the education is also going to come in contact with regulation and how societies are kind of coping with the pandemic. And I think Justin will be able to kind of talk about that experience for sure. And it'll be interesting to see the contrast of different kinds of experiences due to just the societal ways of coping with that pandemic. But way I'm thinking about doing this is to allow for both of them to just kind of briefly have a talk about their experience of the grad school program that they're in. Some of the highlights, maybe some of the setbacks they've had. I would like them to address how they've adjusted, or things particularly that their experiences as being a UW-Stout student has helped aid in their adjusting, or potentially become something for you, possibly those that want to study at a graduate school level could consider, because they've, like I said, they're there now, and they were once not too long ago where you are right now. So I think by just alphabetical order, maybe Emily, I'll start with you and let you introduce yourself. And also, I should say, also let the audience know possibly what you're concentrating in, and what you're kind of maybe doing at the end of your time at Stout, and that can segue into your graduate experience. So,
all right,
Emily, it's all you.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Gordon. I graduated in December of 2019, so just slid right out of there before the pandemic hit, thankfully. With my thesis, I had a solo thesis show that primarily had installation paintings and performance. And then after leaving Stout, being at my parents' house for a while, I didn't really know where my work was going to go. I was kind of nervous to go to grad school. I didn't know if my work was going to backslide or progress. And I'm really happy with my natural progression in my work that has been happening since moving to California and being a part of this program. Right now I'm doing a lot of video work and site-specific installations, which I had never thought I'd be doing. I even bought a film camera last week, which I definitely never thought I would be doing either. So I'm really just kind of expanding out there, trying everything, taking advantage of all the different benefits that the program has allowed me to explore. Right now I am staying at one of the UC reserves. It's through the whole UC school system, where you can just apply to stay at different science research places, and you just get to stay there and work. So right now I'm in Joshua Tree, staying with the university, doing my own work and having a blast. So that's been a really good positive thing with the program, is having the expansion of all the UC schools, and they're willing to work with all the different grad students and letting you come and stay and use their facilities or talk to them. I'm going to be working with the diving instructor from Bodega Bay in a couple months. So really just getting out there. Definitely a negative side. When my cohort and I have to interact, it's hard to kind of engage with them because we don't know how to communicate with one another since we haven't really done it in person. So that's been a barrier that we've had to kind of negotiate around and just try and get to know each other on a personal level without kind of jumping to conclusions. And then the professors always talk about the good old days of when the pandemic wasn't here, and that's just not a productive comment for me. So that's been kind of the only negative things for me. But for the most part, I have like a great studio. I've made some great connections, and we're moving right along.
Good, good. I think that's a nice place to pause, and then we can then kind of go back and forth. So,
Yeah.
Justin, what time is it there actually right now?
It is 10:56.
Oh,
So
it's not too bad. There you go.
no, not at all.
No, that's just fine. Okay. Yeah, Justin, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, so I graduated a year before roughly Emily did. So I graduated in spring 2018. I am on my first year at Glasgow School of Art here in Glasgow, Scotland. And so I started the program in the fall, and I wasn't able to fly here until November, just due to pandemic restrictions and how difficult it made it to get a visa in time to actually get here. There's actually quite a few people who are in my program who have not stepped foot in Glasgow yet, and were on the second semester. So yeah, I mean, when I graduated from Stout, I feel like I left on a really strong note. I had a solo show. I was really excited about my practice and my work. I was like exploring new mediums, new ways of talking about my work. Um, and like I had plans when I was done. Like I was like, oh, I really want to continue doing this. Like I was like working in the fabrication lab and like doing writing. And so I think that was a good motivation to pursue grad school at a later date, but I knew that I wanted to take some time off. So I lived in the Twin Cities for 2 years before making this jump. And pandemic or not, I made the goal for myself. I was like, by the time I'm 26, I want to be in grad school. Otherwise, it's not going to happen for me, just knowing me. And it just so happened to be like one of the hardest years to do it. And I was like, no, I set my goal. I told myself that I was going to do this. And I like put in my applications before the pandemic happened. And so when I got accepted, I was like, I'm gonna take it, I guess. Um, but the best thing about the program, I would say, and even when I was sort of working remotely from the States before getting to Glasgow, is just how diverse an international school is. I'm still blown away by my classmates and just how different all of our backgrounds are. It's just amazing how everyone's approach to making work could not be more different, you know. So that's been really great. Like just seeing other people's work has been really inspiring. Um, and I would say like one of the hardest things is, I'm not gonna lie, like the first couple of months being here, mental health was not good. And I think that just had to do with like a lot of culture shock, but also having to experience culture shock in isolation, I think is also extremely difficult, because it's like it feels like a weird situation, but then it's a weird situation on top of a weird situation. Um, but I can confidently say that I feel much more adjusted now that I've lived here for months now, you know, and I still have been able to make work. I'm working on an art book right now. And I've still been able to experiment and get feedback, and I've bonded with my classmates both in person and virtually. So I think it's actually in a very good place right now, and things are opening up in the UK pretty quickly, actually. So that's promising. I'm really hopeful for this semester and for the summer being here.
Great, great. So I guess kicking it back to both of you, I suppose one thing that at least me as somebody who, went to grad school, in the last 10 years is just, and coming from Stout is, just the structure of a day, the structure of the given course. And we have, I think, two different models here. We have, kind of a model of the United States and, a model that, is from the UK, possibly Europe. So what is the structure? I mean, right now, Stout students, they're grindstone. They have, projects every 2 weeks, usually, in multiple classes. So how is that kind of speed? How is, the day-to-day? How much are you encountering kind of external structures? How much are you being kind of asked to create internal kind of self-guided structures? So give us a little insight in how, the structure of the education is affecting you right now.
Yeah, I would say that, Justin and I both are in a 2-year program. So either way you kind of think about it, it's both really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how his is structured, but he'll say it. And mine is basically like we have a mid-program review every year. So I have like casual studio visits, like kind of what you do in your last 2 years of undergrad. You just, except you do it virtually, and I just meet with them and talk about things, but I'm not getting critiqued ever, really. The studio visits are them just kind of giving me their thoughts on the work. I have not really had a formal critique besides my first year review, where we just have a panel of 4 or 5 faculty, and they review your work, and you have a statement, and it's really formal. And then you either pass or you don't. And if you don't pass, then you get re-reviewed. Thankfully, I passed. And then you do it next year. And then you have your thesis. So it seems very hands-off to me, which works for me because I'm really self-motivated and can set my own pace. My schedule's really wonky, so I like not having a set schedule or a set time or a deadline. I'll just create those for myself in my own weird way. So right now, like my mentality is I'm kind of treating it like a residency, like a full-blown, we're just going to do it, what I need to do, and have these supplemental elective courses that'll just help me along the way. So I've just been kind of rolling with that. I don't have to TA my first year. I might have to next year. So I'm really just taking advantage of all the time I have just to myself and just for my practice this first year.
Good. And are you taking classes right now? Do you have classes to take?
Kind of. We meet like once a week. One is with the whole cohort, so it's just like the 8 of us that we meet with the designated faculty, and they pick the topic last quarter. The professor just wanted us to like get to know each other's work and each other, since we never really did that. So more emotion based. Not my biggest like attraction to the course, but it was nice for other people. And then the other seminar class is just doing the individual studio visits again. And since we had 2 people on sabbatical here, we've had visiting lecturers, which has just been really nice. It's just kind of like having a visiting artist in your studio for that quarter. So that's been really nice. And then I took an art and cinema class, which only met once a week. And then I'm taking a theology class this coming quarter, which also only meets once a week. So.
Okay. Justin, what's the structure like? Is there a structure?
I would definitely agree with Emily that it's been pretty hands off, and it's very easy if you are not self-motivated to kind of get lost in not knowing what to do with your practice. I've definitely seen that with some people with by not having such a sort of like set, like get up at this time, be told what to do by the professors, like it just doesn't register with them, and then they end up not making anything. And so, and the thing is with GSA is talking to alum and other people who have gone through the program without pandemic, it's actually not too different. where it is kind of very hands off and you're expected to be your own motivation. Like they're really not going to babysit you and check to make sure that you're still working. Like you really have to be your own reason. And yeah, I a lot of things that I do are actually us students like organizing together. I'm part of a really awesome like bi-weekly poetry group that is a mix of like MFA year 1 and year 2, and then like they invite their friends, so it's like they invite friends who are also writers, and that's been really cool and helpful. And then also doing sort of like crit clubs with different years. Those have been pretty helpful. We've also been organizing like virtual studio check-ins with each other. So we rotate them and then we check in with each other on our practices. I just had one the other day with 3 of my classmates, and that was really nice. 2 of them in China. So it is kind of nice with the virtual that I'm able to check in on their work. And yeah, I have some electives that I'm doing. So I'm doing like an interactive audio course through the SimViz school, simulation and visualization. So that's pretty cool. Like Glasgow does a pretty good job of intermingling the different schools. And if you want to explore, because there's also like the University of Glasgow, so if you needed to take a course over there, it's pretty easy to cross them. Yeah, I mean, first semester, the big thing is it was a lot of writing, because with Scotland and a lot of the UK in comparison to the US, things shut down. Things actually shut down. like closed, as in like you're not allowed to go onto the campus. Like you're not allowed to go into businesses unless it's a grocery store kind of level. And so dealing with that, it's been very not physical, but to make up for that, the program has been like, okay, write this like 10,000 word paper, so so I remember first semester, the big thing was that we had to write like this huge ass like research paper, and I remember that taking up a lot of the time. But yeah, so structure, what is it? I don't know.
There is none.
It is what you make it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so another thing I think, at least in a strong graduate education, is that it isn't just the school, that it's also the environment that you are going to be embedding yourself in, and the practices and the institutions that are available to you. So how have you interacted with, or how has the school kind of facilitated your kind of interfacing with maybe the potential, the institutions that are around, aka museums, galleries, visiting artists that are coming in from the local communities, bringing in international or national curators, writers, artists? How has that been working, and what kind of function do you think that has in the academics of a graduate program? This was a tough one, I know, possibly to answer because of the pandemic. But whatever you could answer, that'd be helpful, I think.
Well, thankfully at I almost said Stout, at Davis, we have the Minetti Shrub Museum, and Wayne Thiebaud and his endowment donated a bunch of money for visiting artists. So we have a bunch of different programs that are happening through the museum. So we've had like Angelica Crosby come and do like studio visits and artist talks, and we have 3 more planned for the year, and we've had 5 in between. And you just like sign up, and they only visit the graduate students, which is really great. They've been really generous with their time, and then now they're starting a new program where they're calling it the Spotlight Artist. thing. I saw that it was listed on MN Artists. You can like apply to do these different things too, and you get like a studio space and housing and a fund to come and be at the campus for 10 days and use all the facilities and talk to the students. And my roommate Whitney, she's friends with this artist Raul, who's really popping off in New York, so he'll be coming and staying with us for 10 days and doing this whole program, and doing all these different events and artist talks. And I think that's been the lifeline of the program right now, feeling like we have some sort of connection to the outside world rather than being super introspective and locked in our studios. Since we're not like, because I have been able to go into my studio, thankfully, but like we can't have any in-person critiques or studio visits or anything, and we always have to be wearing masks, blah blah blah. But it's been really good to have these people come in and talk about their work and just get a fresh face, fresh talk from someone. And recently the SF MoMA opened up, so I went there last week. That's been really good. A couple of galleries in that area. I'm really close to Oakland and Berkeley and Sacramento and San Francisco, and slowly everything has been starting to open up, and that's been really exciting, and good to see.
Yeah, that it's really, you're positioned in a really lovely spot with that, all the access to all those different locations.
Yeah. And Infika's coming to Sacramento next year, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Justin, yours might be a little tougher because of the lockdown, as you said, but
I mean, I will say one of the big highlights this semester, honestly, the best thing that's happened this semester was getting a one-on-one tutorial with Charlotte Proger. Like that, I was fangirling. Like to go from like when I was at Stout, I remember like listing Charlotte Proger as like an artist that was really inspiring me, and then to actually be able to talk to the person that you've like written about and was like, I really like this person, and then to have them like look at your work and give you feedback. I was so excited. It was so good. And they were just like so attentive and like listened to what I had to say. And honestly, I feel like having like the virtual like one-on-one meeting made that easier to do versus like if they come to your studio and there's like other people around. I think that was a really great time. We've had like visiting artist lectures, I want to say like every Friday, pretty much. Like there's always a Friday event, and I've gone to a ton of them, and it's a wide breadth of people. A lot of like London artists tuning in just because of time zones, but it kind of helps that before coming to Glasgow, I kind of already knew that I liked the artists in this area. So like it is kind of nice that like before coming here, I already kind of knew what the scene looked like before I got here. So then I could be like excited to meet these people. But yeah, and with Glasgow, it's an art city. It really is. You can throw a stone and you hit an artist. You know, like they're literature. You look out into your backyard garden and you see someone spray painting a tree. You know, it's like everyone's an artist here. It's really kind of funny. But I think that's great because it's like you have Goma nearby. You have Transmission Gallery that I've gotten to email, and the Tate, even though I hate the Tate, like it's just really funny because it's like the Tate tried calling one of my classmates and I saw him like decline them. It was like it was big energy coming from him to be like, oh, the Tate, no thank you. It was like, so there's definitely a lot of connections to be made over here. I mean, definitely for museums, it's like if you're in Europe, you know, the museum scene is going to be pretty incredible.
Excellent. Yeah. Shout out Charlotte. If, those that don't know, Charlotte Roger is a very awesome artist. I actually studied with Charlotte. She was in my year, and she's went on to win the Turner Prize, which is a big prize in the UK, and represented Scotland in the Venice Biennale recently as well. So superstar, but a superstar that makes very beautiful work. So I want to open up for questions, soon here. But I'm seeing something emerge right now, and I just want students to recognize this. Is one could possibly come off this moment and go, well, it sounds like it's just there's nothing there. There's no rigor. There's the intensity. Where is the depth of what we assume as the graduate, the higher education. But if you're watching this, it's quite spatially distended. There's lots of points, right? And it looks like, they are putting those things together. They're forming their education. They are picking, they're choosing, they have to locate that it isn't just given. It's not even normalized in terms of a normal set of what a curriculum is in terms of an excellence in a graduate school education. There is the peers, the instructors, the facilities, the city. They're a constellation. So I suppose one last thing, and this is maybe going to point to the students, is how do you think that your time at Stout helped or hindered? And how, let's gossip for a minute. How are some of your classmates? Like what is the Stout education? How's it shaping up against some of your peers? What's some kind of basic advice? Then maybe we'll open up for students to ask particular questions.
We just talked about this, Emily. We literally just did.
We were talking about this morning, about how, for sure with my year, there are a lot of people who assume that the institution is going to hold their hand or pave a pathway to whatever promised land they think is going to happen with shows or residencies or funding or whatever. They just don't see the need to carve it out for themselves. And I think Stout really prepared me to be like really scrappy, look for funding on my own, like take advantage of everything that the institution has to offer, because that's what they're there for. They're there to serve me in my eyes. And I'm there and I'm going to take what you have to give me, and hopefully do something good with it. And I think, it's been difficult to just work with people who have this sense of entitlement or lack of awareness of that side of the art world where you really do have to put in the work if you want something to happen the way that you want it to happen. And like having to do group shows with your peers in undergrad, it's like, I know with the ceramics department, like we butt heads, like we fought every time we had to put a show together. But at the end of the day, it taught us how to work with difficult people, different perspectives, how to hang our work, put it all together, like organize and like really come together and feel good about a project that you all put like effort into. And some people just didn't have that experience in undergrad. And I think at Stout that you really kind of do have that set up for you.
Good. Justin?
So like I was telling Emily this, there are definitely people who are in my program who have like no experience physically doing things. Like I don't know how to say that in a nice way, but like it is very different like backgrounds for some people. Like there were a handful of people who were like, how do I hang my work? I've never done that before. Other people do that for me. So I was like, oh my gosh. Or like there's even some people who are like, I build the sculpture. I thought I just come up with the ideas and you guys do it for me. I'm like, this is crazy. So I definitely feel like I have an edge because while they're figuring out what a nail does, I can actually focus on challenging myself and doing more. But yeah, it's just like different kinds of knowledge, definitely. Like I was living with someone who had an undergrad in behavioral science, so it didn't even come from an art background. Um, and it was just very interesting to see how our knowledges were different. Like he didn't know what a hammer was, but he'd be like, "Oh, you haven't read every single book in the Cambridge Library?" And he was like, "I have," and I was like, "Well, that's great." Uh, so it's just yeah, I would say like different knowledges, but I definitely feel like I have an edge because when it came to conversations about like, oh, what do we do now? I'd be like, well, here's how we can put together a show, and here's how we can actually take some initiative. And I actually felt like it was a time for me to be a front runner with my kind of background. And I do feel like Stout, in comparison to other programs, does a really good job of kind of teaching you how to do things and actually get things done, which is great. I really do appreciate it, and I feel like I would be singing a very different tune if I didn't have that kind of background.
Yeah, and to not make it like, and we're all like, it sounds like we're kind of painting a picture of like we're these like blue collar artists, like we only do the hard work. But I said it when I talked to senior seminar with Loom, that like also the rigor of senior seminar really set me up to feel like an equal intellect with my cohort, who are like 10 plus years older than me on average. So that also felt really good too. So I'll always shout out to Professor Loom for setting that up and giving us all those readings. And I still have them, and I still look back at them and give them to my cohort now.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, Justin, you're not going to be able to make anything though, unfortunately, even when it does open up, because you can't cut it. You can't cut a single board. at least when I was doing, like you have to get it cut for you, and they even make all the stretchers. All the painters get all their stretchers made. You just order it to make. So
what?
It's very crazy. Like right now, what they have set up, or at least what they had set up before total lockdown, was you drop off your stuff and then the technicians make your project for you. And some of the students have really taken into that, where they come in with like especially with like laser cutting, like they just come in with the blueprint, basically hand it to the technician, and then within a couple of days they go pick up their thing and they're like, look, I have a piece. And my brain is just kind of like, how can you no make it yourself.
All right, so I suppose Tim, Charlie, do you got something else to add? Some things that some gaps, some holes that we could ask of Justin or Emily.
Well, this is Charlie. Well, thanks to both of you. It's really great to hear your thoughts. And thank you, Emily, for your generous comment. I guess what I'd like to hear, just we definitely want to have time for students to talk, but I think I'd like to hear what are the things that you wanted from Stout or needed from Stout now that you don't have. You talked about many of the positive things, but it'd be great to hear, because that would help me too. I think as a faculty member, like there are things that I know there are deficits that we have, and we're thinking about curricular changes. So yeah, that'd be really helpful. Thanks.
Justin, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I like how that was kind of like a little like guest pop-in, like just a little moment with Loom. I mean, I kind of brought this up with the morning with you, Emily, is with some of my classmates, it's kind of just crazy the amount of experience they have working with galleries and like just networking experience. One of my class. I mean, granted, he's a little bit older than me, but he's like signed on with a gallery and like has experience working with curators and coming here to Glasgow. Like, I was really surprised when we were working with like the curatorial practice majors and like having to talk with curators and them being like, hey, like, what do you want us to do for you? And I was like, I've never done this before. I've never talked to this sort of like middle person or like had a lot of this experience. So I would say like gallery experience, like working with curators, with writers, with like partners, stuff like that. I think was something that really blindsided me actually a little bit coming here.
Can you hear me? It like froze for a sec.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that rings true to me. I also brought up to Loom at one point too that just like performance studies, or even like now with the positive of going over Zoom or whatever this app is, you can get more people from different areas to kind of talk about their practice. And I know there's not like a huge performing arts in terms of like performance art in the Midwest, so maybe getting more of that kind of exposure, even just like text-wise, or just visiting artist-wise to the program.
Yeah, I think performance. Yeah, I think a couple of those are, yeah, the performing arts, the performance arts side of things. There is. I mean, yeah, I think ebbs and flows too. I think oftentimes performance-based practices, kind of mimic and they kind of copycat each other. So like right now in my sculpture classes, a lot of students are interested in doing performance. So it just kind of happens in like little groups and it kind of clusters. And then, there is difficulties of that rural institution, right, of getting in contact with gallerists and, that kind of managing. But yeah, good. Before I open to students, Tim, did you have any hot burning question or anything to raise?
No.
Okay, that's.
I just want to say thanks to both of you for doing this. It's super generous of your time and everything, and it's awesome to see you. You sound so grown up now. I don't want to sound patronizing, but it's like holy shit.
It's
Thank you so much for doing it. It's awesome to hear about the experiences too. It's totally enlightening, and it's kind of cool hearing how sort of practical you are when you, in comparison to other people. That sounds so Wisconsin. It's awesome. It's great to hear. So anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. So we have a pretty decent audience. So do we have any questions? If you're not totally comfortable of speaking them out, you can also put them in chat too. I'll monitor the chat. Anybody? I'm gonna break the ice. This is potential future you. Like, you can ask ahead of time. See, you have hot burning questions.
We don't bite.
Yeah.
Said we don't bite.
Yep. Hey, yeah, Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for, I guess, both of you. So when it comes to time spent working on your practice, did that change compared to undergrad? Or like, do you work on it more or less now, or and not keep track of that?
You're breaking up a little bit, Sarah.
Well, basically it was just sounding like she was asking how much time we spend in our studios.
Yep.
Yep. And I noticed that I felt that I was spending less time in the studio, but then I removed the amount of time and stress from like ceramics guild and scheduled 3-hour classes and critiques for other things that, like, if you strip all that away, which is really what grad school feels like to me, then you're just left with your own work schedule. So I feel like I'm working more in the studio, but it just felt like less because there's less distraction. And then my studio has transformed and moved, and I feel like I prepared for the possibility of my studio being taken away from me. So I started doing video work and photography, and even started working on a book that's nowhere close to being finished. But just having that in the back pocket too, so I can take these trips that I'm doing and be really flexible and go camping and still have my studio with me, has been really great. So I feel like I'm working on my own self and practice a lot more than I initially was giving myself credit for.
Good, Justin?
Yeah. I kind of thought, like, coming into grad school, it would be a case of like, oh, I'm gonna be like exhausted and it's gonna be like undergrad on steroids, and like I'm gonna be like doing double the amount of work. And I mean, kind of in a different way. I will say I feel like I'm working on my practice about the same as what I was doing in the undergrad, but the difference is I'm doing so much more reading now. Like, every class, it could be a class on napping, and chances are you have like 5 different things that you have to read by the end of the week. And I'm like sitting in on some electives too, so it's like it's a lot of, like, some of it's optional, but I feel like I am sort of taking on this challenge of like reading and researching a lot more than I did in my undergrad. And I think you're almost kind of expected to in some ways too, just because with some of your peers, like, I have some really well-read peers, and they're like, "What do you mean you haven't read Foucault?" Like, you almost kind of want to keep up with the conversations sometimes in the classes. So I would say definitely more time spent reading, and then just as much time working on studio practice. So it is like a little bit longer hours, I guess. But
Yeah, I think that rang true for me. And I think that different levels of literacy really does. It's hard to explain where where do you need to patch up things, where do you need to meet the demands that are given, and I think they change generationally and by geography as well. But yeah, that's good. And yeah, cutting off a lot of the additional things, right? That's a smart way of looking at it, Emily. That you do accrue, right? Just a lot of energy expenditure, that isn't as streamlined. So get rid of the guild, get rid of, which is not a bad thing, students critiquing other people's work all the time, but yeah, it is a little bit more selfish in that way, right? Self-focused, maybe not selfish, but just focus on the self. And I think that's good. Okay. So I hope that answered the question, Sarah. Anybody else? I'm set aside about a half hour, so let's ask those questions. Good. All right, Beck, what do you got?
I guess this is a question for Justin, but you kind of mentioned that you went to Glasgow with like an expectation of a certain culture. Could you maybe like describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to blame Darren for this, because I will say that, like, by having a great relationship with Darren and kind of having him be my mentor, like, it was just natural to learn a lot about Glasgow. And I also just like really vibed with the artists in this area. I would say that it's like a very cerebral kind of school, and that's what I was attracted to. Is I felt like it was a school that would appreciate writing and like sound work and like the things that I was interested in. And kind of looking at the artists that have done well here and like what's to offer, I was like, oh, I see like my practice in the opportunities that are in this area. Like looking at the galleries, I'm like, oh, I like that work. So it's like I would want to be in that area to physically see that work.
All right, sweet. Thank you.
Sorry if I pulled a Boisean on you and made my own myth, you know. But you haven't fully experienced it. Wait till you know. Wait till
Yeah.
you're out and about. It gets a lot of fun. All right, Aaron, I saw the hand up. Is the question still alive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet.
So I guess I'm still, kind of figuring out where I'm going to be in the art world and understanding everything fully. I guess my question would be like, how much has grad school increased your confidence in, I guess, where you're going to be, what your place is going to be in the art world?
Good question. For me, I feel like I always just have like a level of confidence I like to maintain. And then coming into grad school, I didn't have it as much, but then it just came right back again. And then it allowed me to kind of move my focus away from what I thought my art career was going to be or what I wanted it to be, and then really was able to expand beyond it. So I was even telling Darren this a couple days ago that my next like 5-year plan, if I'm ever going to stick to a plan, is that I just want to bounce around residencies and just focus on this like selfish nature of my practice at this point, where I'm just making and continuing to move around the country and the world, and just being able to make in different places, because I really was excited and motivated by the geographical move for me. It really just like ignited a mental shift where that I have a more urgency to move around the world, and then my practice will move with me.
Justin?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the thing that actually kind of gave me a little bit of confidence coming into this program, especially being here now for a while, is this like thrusting oneself into the unknown as being such like an exhilarating process. And I never really consider myself much of a traveler, or that I would ever leave sort of like my bubble. Even like flying internationally terrified me. I hate flying so much. But now that I've done it, I'm just kind of like, wow, like the idea of like doing residencies, like moving, traveling, going to even like different countries is now, I'm just kind of like, I've taken this step that I thought I would never have done. And that's given me a lot of confidence, because I think there were a lot of people in my life that were very surprised that I did this move. You know, a lot of my family members were like, I can't believe you're like leaving. You know, not many of us leave. And it just feels like I'm opening a lot of new connections. You know, there's something really great about putting yourself in a new environment and meeting completely new people. Like I am amazed that now I have like good friends that are from South Africa, from China, from Geneva, like from, I mean, obviously here in the UK too, but I'm just kind of like, that's awesome, because no matter where I go, when I go back to the States, I now have like these people I can contact that are from these completely different places.
Yeah, that's really hopeful. Yeah, that's great. So there's a little double question here. Sophia and Lauren have a question about the staying or going, or like taking a little time off after undergrad, or going straight in. And I think we have right. I think examples of both. So some pros and cons, and some advice on waiting or just plowing in, going straight there. I think maybe Emily's frozen, or she's really, really still by this question.
I don't think I'm still, but hopefully my audio works.
Your audio is just fine. You're just
Okay.
you're good.
Hopefully I'm not frozen in a horrible position. Well, for my McNair, I was a part of McNair at Stout, which was very influential in me getting to this place and getting the fellowship that I have. And they also required me to apply to grad school right away, which is like their whole program. And I always said if they didn't pay me to go, they didn't want me. So that was my whole mentality. I'm going to do all these applications and see what bites, who takes the bait. And I got a really good offer. And I think if I didn't get the offer that I have, I wouldn't have gone. And I would have maybe tried the Twin Cities scene or moved somewhere else. So I'm glad that I went right away. It worked out. It's like a way better place for me to be in this pandemic compared to me living at my parents and working at the Walker. Like this has just been like monumental for my mental health and the continuation of my practice and just like overall outlook on life. I always like feel kind of bad when I talk to friends being like, oh yeah, my life is pretty great. I'm just like in the desert and hanging out. And they're like, okay, it's snowing in Minnesota and you suck. So like it's been good. It's been good for me. But it's not for everyone. And if you feel like you don't have the confidence level by your last semester of undergrad, I feel like you can try and apply and see what happens or get feedback. But if you don't feel that you're ready, then that's just for you to kind of check in with yourself and see what you really want out of grad school. Like for me, I really wanted to move out of the Midwest. I really wanted to expand my network. And this was a great step for me to do that. But if you aren't really in tune with who you are and what your practice has been and what it could be, then it might be a really bad time for you to go. Because I know right now there's some people in my cohort who are really struggling with the hands-offness, with the lack of normal community, with the lack of studio visits, and they're kind of crumbling. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, because I waited 2 years. So I kind of like set the goal early on where I was like, I definitely want to take 2 years off. I was like, I want to move to the Twin Cities first, because I want to try living in a city first before trying to live in a city and then also be starting grad school. Because I was like, I need to figure out if I actually can live as an adult before I do something like this. And I'm glad I did. It was also kind of a test for myself to see if like in 2 years I would still care about art. I know that sounds like really like what the hell, like you did an undergrad in it, but it's true. Like I've seen a lot of people where it's like they just they don't stick with it, and that's not that there's nothing wrong with that. But I was like, I think it's really easy to assume that like if you've done an undergrad in art that you'll be an artist, and I think that's like you really need to be honest with yourself and be like, is this what I'm passionate about? And luckily 2 years passed and I was like, I really miss being in a school, and I really am excited for the idea of grad school, and I haven't like been swept up by some job in the Twin Cities that made me never want to go to school. I definitely felt like something was missing. So I felt like that was a really good reason to go. But yeah, and I've seen some people in this program who came here and they weren't into it and then they left, and I think that's fine too. So just know that that happens.
Yeah, good. Added on, one thing I think that is also important to consider too is, if you're like a printmaker, you'll have a very different experience when you have to locate, joining, High Point printing in the cities, or, like there is a certain material and processes that become rarefied and scarce when you get out of school. Those things can become moments for you to reflect upon, and understanding how many kind of material or kind of infrastructural needs that you have. And sometimes having a little studio, that can be tough. Sometimes you can be productive, but there is different levels of preparedness, but there's also different environments that necessitate facilities, and the grad school can be a place for that to be recognized as well. Rory, you've had your hand patiently for quite some time. What do you got?
So I was just going to ask about whether grad school would be recommended to anyone who didn't know like exactly what they were going to do, but that already got kind of answered, I think.
Yeah. I suppose one way to maybe frame this, Rory, is, are you making the same kind of work that you made when you're an undergrad? Did it quit? Did you have it all figured out, or did you kind of scrap and restart? Is it okay for Rory maybe to not have a total, concrete, representation of what to make, what to do? How do you feel?
Well, I mean, I told you I was
No, I'm not asking. I was asking, them. So.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were asking them too.
Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, sorry, my bad. For the two of you, like, is it a smooth transition? I mean, I can tell not quite, but yeah.
I stuck to my old tricks when I first got there to
Yep.
like get acclimated into a new space. So I ripped up some paintings and did all that, and then it really just shifted once I like went on this camping trip with my roommate and just like got to be in a totally different environment. It felt very alien to me. I'd only been to California once before moving there. And then I started going back into old tricks. So I painted again, really liked the full composition, and then another day goes by and then I rip it up. So I think you keep to your old things, but revisit it in new ways, and then you find totally different avenues to go down and just see where it takes you.
Justin?
I will say, like, I remember Amanda Dobritz coming to Stout and talking about her experience at GSA when I was a Stout student. So I was like at her talk. And I remember her saying that like when she got there, like she kind of had like this strong established like identity as a painter, and was like, my paintings were good according to where I had come from. And then like I got to GSA, and I remember her saying that they said that they were unfashionable, and like how they were just rude and cruel, and like really kind of like broke her down. And then she kind of like found her new way through like ceramics, and ended up making completely different work now, and now is like super happy with like that change, I guess. And so I was fully expecting to come to GSA and have them tell me that my work was terrible, and that I would be like doing crazy things like biting the walls and like trying to find a way to be like interesting to them. And I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised that it didn't go that way. They definitely don't like tell you that you like suck or anything, like, or at least they didn't with me. So I feel like I'm kind of making my natural progression in the type of work that I'm making. And I feel really confident in what I'm doing. But I also know plenty of my classmates who are very confused, but they're still working through it, and they're still on to stuff. So I don't think there's like a right or wrong way of like knowing what you're doing. Yeah, hope that helps.
Okay. Hope that helps. Yep, Rory. Now, Sarah has another question in chat. This was for Emily about, says, work with video. Does the change in weather from moving to these specific places influence your work? And could you say maybe why? So how is environment changed your work, or how has have you become more interested in the environment with your work?
Yeah, that's a big thing with my work right now. Maybe we could have a like individual studio visit more to talk about that, because that is
Yep.
like a very lengthy answer that I could give. But the short and sweet of it is, if I'm in a environment that's like sunny and rocky, then I'll kind of have like a series of photos and videos that have this kind of same feel. The writing will be influenced by it, and then if I'm in a foggy area, then we'll kind of have we'll be with the mood of that.
A little misty.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you can reach out and maybe speak about that another time. Katrina has a good question here. What kind of portfolio did you have to prepare? That grad school must have a really intense portfolio that you have to put together. So could you talk a little bit about the requirements and how you put together your portfolio, and what did they ask for? And yeah, 2 different schools. So I guess maybe Justin, we'll start with you this time. Yeah, what was the portfolio like? What did you have to put together? Did you use Stout work? Yes, ask something that. Do you use work from Stout classes?
I definitely I focused more on showing work that was from my thesis show. Like, you definitely have to be, I mean, with certain applications. With mine, I felt like I had to be very critical on which ones to focus on, because it's actually like a pretty small window that you have to show what your work is. You don't get like a million slots. And especially in the interview process, like I definitely felt like there was not enough time to like talk about things. So it ended up really focusing on just a couple pieces. So I think be prepared to like have to like really boil it down to like what is the best of your practice, and not like bury them in a bunch of images. And that can be really hard. I lucked out because like I felt like the documents that I had from Stout really helped out. So like definitely for like the artist statement, I was able to look at past artist statements and kind of use them as references, so that it didn't felt like I was giving them something that was completely from scratch.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a little bit of writing, a little bit of images, and then an interview process.
Yep, you had a interview. Yep. Emily, what was your submission like? What was the process putting together
Yeah.
the portfolio?
All the schools I applied to asked for 20 images, statement of purpose, artist statement. And Davis asked for a diversity statement, so that was a little different, but compared to the other schools. And I used all the images from my thesis show. Luckily, that was like a month before like I submitted everything. And I just used that with detail shots. I used a lot of images or video from my residency too. So I was the Bud and Betty and Keel's student artist in residence with Melissa Lackey. So that really helped too. And so there was only a couple images out of the 20 images that I was allowed that were from different classwork. And most of it was from like advanced sculpture, I would say, or advanced painting as well. So the advanced classes for sure, take like the best 1 or 2 pieces from those classes, plus your more advanced work like your thesis, or if you get a residency. I would say that all of you should be applying to any opportunity that is given to you from Stout. Even if you don't get it, it's just the practice that you'll need, and you'll need the thick skin for when you will get rejected eventually in life.
Good job plugging the student artist residency, Emily, because that's coming up. And there's an information meeting, and there's also an interview that will be happening as well later in the week. Okay, look at the schedule. But it sounds like though, Katrina doesn't have to be as nervous, because the things that you're doing at Stout it wasn't a surprise. You were just documenting your work. You were using your thesis stuff. You were already writing artist statements. So there was no big surprise, except maybe you had a phone interview probably as well, right?
Yeah,
Emily,
I had a phone interview.
Yep. So there was the interview, and that is a new thing, right? Is being kind of put on the spot to the unknown, right? The putting together the submission is hyper controlled. Then it's like, what are they going to say? What are they going to ask? And that's hard to necessarily plan for. So good.
I would also say that my cohort said that my photographs of my work were really impressive, and that is because I used Andrew in the print lab every time I had a finished piece. So definitely reach out to him or like figure out how to use a camera because I was too lazy to do it at the time. So thank you, Andrew, for that. So just like use the spaces that Stout has. Like I miss just being able to pop into the sculpture lab and photograph in that little room because at Davis we don't have any exhibition space. So having those clean, nice spaces is a gem for sure.
Bang on. That's good advice. Yes, make
Yeah.
sure that documentation, right,
Mhm.
is looking good. And yeah, it is your passport in some ways, to move on.
Oh, yeah.
What else do we have? I think that's the end of the list there. Yeah, and we're reaching the end of the time. Well, any others? Last minute. There's still a few minutes here. No? Right. Well, it's been really really great to have you in this situation here and to give your perspectives, and still I hope that many of these students feel a certain kinship, an implied kind of feeling, a Stout feeling that's built, and yeah, that you have given us a good insight into the differences in your grad school experiences, and made it seem like not an impossibility, maybe not necessarily a necessity right away, but certainly something within reach, and something that yeah is not scary, but exciting. So, any final words for the two of you, Emily, Justin? Any parting things, last things you'd like to say?
Yeah, just throw your hat in any ring that is presented to you. You'll get something out of it no matter what. So I hear a lot of my friends say, even when they're in grad school, that they don't have the confidence level to apply to shows. And it's like, just gotta tune out the imposter syndrome and just go for it, and something will stick.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome can feel pretty real. Thinking really downplaying your stout rural education, and it's nonsense. Like these two have shown that. Justin, anything?
I would just like to say, like, thank you for this panel. I'm really happy that people came. I was fully like expecting it to just be like the three of us. And the questions have been great. I'm really happy to see Stout like persevering, and I'm very proud to have come from Stout, and I hope you all are enjoying your time there.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Both Emily and Justin were kind enough to put their email, so that's lovely. You can reach out to them if you have any questions or further interest in maybe what they're even doing, their work. And I will just plug that there's many events still happening. Refer to the itinerary that's been sent around. If you're in my classes, I've already sent that out, but we have things coming up right after this. So I would jump to the next one. Andy Sturdivant from Springboard for the Arts is going to be doing a talk, and it's a fantastic talk if it's anything like the ones that I've been into for Andy. I think practice of art students that are in this class, this one was originally set up to be required. It was going to be during our class, so I really suggest going to that one. Andy really outlines a lot of the things that we're going to cover in the next few weeks. We have the artist in residency talk discussion. We also have a panel discussion for the exhibition in the furlong. I am going to try to figure out somehow to be able to be a good person to teach you how to make an artist website by Friday. I promise I'll do it. And that will be available. And then there's also other design events as well. So do go to those. And I thank you for coming. I was a little worried too, but I shouldn't have been. I should have trusted in you all. So thank you for coming. And this concludes this event. So have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emily and Justin. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily and Justin. Really great.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren.
Yep. Thank you. Take care.
See you
Are
later.
you going to pop in to Andy's or anybody?
I will.
Are you going to, Charlie? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I can hold out Juan Lee's really, I gotta take over for a little while. So excellent. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon.
See ya. Bye.
Bye, Charlie. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Great to see you, Justin. Way to keep going.
All right. We'll see you later.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily. Take care.